EGR 6163, Project Management, Module 2, Lecture 2, Organizational Strategy and Project Selection. So in this lecture, we will continue on from Module 2, Lecture 1. So the objectives, the first two we talked about in Lecture 1. Lecture 1, we talked about the applying financial criteria. In this lecture, we will continue the discussion of how to select projects, but we'll focus on the non-financial criteria. We'll also apply the objective priority system to project selection. And again, the reading assignment is Larson, Chapter 2. So non-financial criteria, these have become popular in the last couple decades. So here you come up with some examples of strategic objectives you're trying to meet, and you come up with a rubric that sort of tries to capture these strategic objectives. So some examples, these aren't all inclusive, it's just some the book put out. You may want to capture a larger market share, make it more difficult for competitors to enter the market, develop a product that will increase sales, develop some core technology that will be used in the next generation of products, reduce dependency on unreliable suppliers, prevent government intervention and regulation. So these are all some kind of non-financial criteria that you might want to consider and come in with a rubric to score your particular project. So there's two, let's talk about the two examples of multi-criteria selection models that are out there. The first is what's called a checklist model. It uses a list of questions like in the previous slide to review potential projects and determine their acceptance or rejection. The advantage of it is it allows for great flexibility in selecting among different types of projects and easy to use across different divisions and locations. Disadvantage of it is it fails to answer the relative importance or value of a potential project to the organization, and it's not easy to compare different projects. So that's some of the disadvantages of the checklist model. The next one is the multi-weighted scoring models. These use several weighted selection criteria to evaluate project proposals. The advantage of it is it can include qualitative as well as quantitative criteria. Another advantage is it allows for comparison with other potential projects. So the second method is a much more sophisticated method, I would say. So first, here's an example of the checklist models. These are some sample selection questions used in practice, and here you can see, so the topic, like strategy alignment. So the question might be, what specific organizational strategy does the department align with? So there'll be a question you'd have to answer. Risk. What's the impact of not doing this project? So these are kind of broad questions you can ask. The multi-weighted scoring model typically uses several weighted question criteria to evaluate a project. So you can see here at the top you have the questions. Stay within core competencies. So here's your projects you're going to consider, project 1 through project 6, all the way down to project N. So here, a person would come in and he would say, okay, I rate this as a 1. This is not very likely to stay within our core competencies. Where project 3 is a 9. I mean that's as high as you can get. Now the weight factor is what gets multiplied by each one of these to determine its relative importance, right? So the bigger the weight, the more it gets added into the calculation. So for project 1, you would multiply the weight times the score plus this weight times its score. And so when you come all the way over to the right, this is the weighted score of doing that. And I'll give you an Excel template to show you how I did this. If you use it when you're at the homework or something, you can use this template I came up with. So here, again, the weights and scores are multiplied to get a total weighted score for the project. Each each criteria here are rated from from 0 to 10. You know, 0 would be like no value, and 10 would be the most value, right? The most important one. So here, you know, in this this kind of example, we would probably fund project 5. You know, you always fund the one that has the highest weighted score. So you'd fund project 5. You know, and the second one is project N here, and you come down and maybe fund this one. So typically, what firms are going to do, they're going to have some kind of cutoff. So they'll, you know, and that's up to the project manager to say, okay, you know, maybe we'll fund everything over a 60, right? So here you'd fund project 5, project N, and maybe project 1 would be funded, and the rest of them would not be funded. Pretty simple method. So again, in general, you know, what's the purpose of the selection models? You know, it's really to decide whether the project fits within the organizational strategy. And, you know, which model should you select? Well, in general, you should probably try the weighted scoring criteria. Seems the best method. You know, they help to identify what project goals. It's easy to calculate as well. It also, you know, shows that project managers how the project was selected and how it compares with other projects. So that's why that weighted method is the one that's preferred. So how do you you know? So now we've come up with you know, a method that we're going to judge our projects on. We have this weighted scoring criteria. You know, if we're going to you know, how do we get projects in the first place? Well, you typically you have you solicit project proposals from somebody that works in the plant, right? And it can come from anybody. Anyone that believes their project will add value to the organization. And so typically what you do is you have a project proposal form like shown on the right here. This particular one, the book has this for an automatic vehicle location system. And so up here you see it's got the date, it's got the proposal number, it's got the sponsor. This is who has the idea. It's got the, you know, project classification. Is it strategic, operational, or compliance? What problem does it solve? How does this project align with our organizational strategy? So the proposer would have to fill these in, right? Impact of not doing the project, major risk for the project, how you're going to measure the success, estimated cost, how long will it take, and then, you know, the selection committee will go through these, and they'll either accept or reject these based on their selection criteria. Here's another one. This is you know, what's called a risk analysis. You know, many organizations use these what's called risk analysis templates to gain insight into a project's inherent risk. It's useful in balancing the portfolio and identifying major risk of a project. So this is typically an attachment to the project proposal form. You know, what are the major risks of this project? What's the likelihood of government incentives curtailed, land use injunction, energy price decrease, new import tax? I mean, these are all risk values. So this gets submitted for each project, so that the project manager can determine the inherent risk involved with actually even doing the project. So culling through these many proposals to identify those that add the most value requires a structured process. This figure below shows a flow chart for a screening process beginning with the submission of the project. So the proposal gets submitted. The priority team evaluates proposals and views portfolio for balance. They can either reject it or they can return it for more information. If they choose to pursue it, the project manager staff are assigned to develop the implementation plan. Uh, Priority team evaluates the proposal with the implementation plan. And they can either reject it or they can return it for more information. If it's accepted, you have to make two choices here. Do you have the resources to actually do it? If you do, well, the charter is issued and resources are signed, and you start the project. This figure below is a partial example of an evaluation form used by a large company to prioritize and select new projects. This form distinguishes between must objectives and must meet impacts. So these are, if a project does not meet design must objective, is not considered and is removed from consideration. So here, some firms do these. I mean, some don't. You got what's called one objectives. These are, things you want the project to do, and with the requisite scoring, and then you have the total weight. I mean, so these are another way to do a project screening process. So typically, in a big outfit, you'll have several projects going at one time. Managing that portfolio of projects also takes effort, and so you typically have a team of people that actually do that. It's they actually look at all the projects, and so typically you have senior management input to the project portfolio system. This provides guidance in establishing the criteria that align with the current strategies. They look at it, decide how to balance the available resources, which are people and capital, among the different types of projects. And then a lot of firms have in a larger organization, they'll have what's called a governance team responsibility. This is a team of people, typically made up of experienced project managers, to actually manage all the projects. They publish the priority of each project, ensure the selection process is open and free of politics. They're the ones that evaluate the progress of current projects, and they constantly are on the lookout for new projects, and to determine also that the selection criteria need to be modified as new information comes up. So when you have all these kinds of projects, it's often difficult to balance the risk and types of projects you do. Two researchers, David and Jim Matheson, studied R&D organizations and developed a classification scheme that could be used for assessing a project portfolio. They separated projects in terms of degree of difficulty and commercial value. They determined that there's basically 4 types of projects. The first one's called bread and butter. These are the projects that involve evolutionary improvements to current projects and services. These are the everyday projects that companies are doing. The second are what's called pearls. These represent, revolutionary commercial advances using proven technology. So this may be like, the first iPad, right? Or the first iPhone would be like one of those. And then there's oysters. They're breakthroughs, right? With tremendous commercial potential. So actually, I guess the iPhone would be an oyster. The first iPad certainly would be an oyster. Then there's also what's called white elephants. These will show promise at one time, but are no longer viable white elephants. Okay, so that's the end of Module 2. I'll see you in Module 3.